Right, yeah. So, Achilles, we're back again
Hmm.
with what?
Yes.
This will be, what, episode 3, I think. It
Good.
is, I
Okay.
believe, 10 a.m. on day +1,
Hmm.
and we are attempting to cross the Erkhoven Canal Bridge. We
Okay.
basically, overnight, uh, convened at Geldrup and basically did a bit of a probing attack and miraculously found a bridge across the canal. So we're happy as Larry at the moment. Right. Oh, I'll, if you have any questions, as always, just tell me when to stop and we'll talk
All
about
right.
it. Or at least commanders said they're still hanging around here. The 101st is around here somewhere, but they're getting beaten up trying to hold this bridge for us. Those poor bastards. they weren't.
There's
They weren't
a
banking
question
on
for you,
me
sir.
being. Yeah.
Um, in the prisoners that you took
Uh huh.
down there, were you able to identify what division they are with?
Um. Uh. No, I don't think at that point I was. I don't think so. I don't think that was included in the report. Just that they were artillerymen. Um,
Okay.
and I didn't even ask. I thought to myself, you know, if they wanted me to know it, they would have told me. Um, um,
The reason I ask is because that position
hmm,
is two divisions that you have on the map. The SS division and
yeah,
the what is it, 364th or
yeah,
something, I
something like
forget.
that. Yeah, which
Yeah.
we at the start of the game were reliably told that was what was in front of us. So
Right.
from that point on, I
So
was not really, you know, aware what we were
so
fighting. Really.
yeah. So if those were not SS troops, which would have been patently obvious,
Hmm.
I mean, they may not have included in the report, but obviously, you would have seen it from their uniform. If they don't have the SS tag on there, then they're not, right?
Yeah.
Um, and so if they're part of that infantry division, then or whichever one they're part of, yeah, it would tell you that that's probably the boundary between those two formations.
Hmm.
And generally speaking, that's where you want to hit an enemy because that's the weakest point, and it also helps because the two divisions don't know which one is responsible for it.
Yeah.
you know, if you can hit right between two formations, they, unless they're extremely well trained or their
Hmm.
commanders are well coordinated, they don't know who's responsible for that area, and it tends to be an
Oh,
easy place to
yeah.
punch
I
through.
mean, I'll have to double check, but you might be right
Mhm.
because I think
Mhm.
this is one of those times where I just kind of hit the weak point.
Right.
As as I said, it was reported that every other little stone bridge had been blown on that
Mhm.
particular canal, and I was just like, right, okay, and we just got just lucky enough to find one, so we didn't have to
Mhm.
fight through the town.
Yeah, and if they're impressing artillerymen to act as infantry,
Yeah.
I mean they're desperately spread thin. Clearly, they probably have no reserve uh, to put in there because their frontage is bigger than their combat
Yeah.
uh, capability. So that was probably the very end of their line,
Mm.
and everything to the left of it would have been the responsibility of the SS division, and that made that an extreme weak point, which you were able to punch through. So that was that was either really really good fortune or extremely well planned. Good job, Mr. Pumphouse.
I think it was probably a roll of the dice that maybe the umpires were like, well, hang on, they can't get stopped here. That we have to play. We have to keep playing.
I mean, come on, these guys don't even have, I mean, they barely got rifles, I mean,
Yeah.
and it's interesting that you have up here where the 101st is. You said they're holding a bridge up there.
Yeah, so this is the area of Son Bridge.
Right.
That scene with Elliot Gould, and
Right.
and them trying to get that bridge. This is that particular bridge.
So by inference, if they're getting beat up trying to hold that bridge, then the blocks you have for the Germans there cannot be accurate, right? There's got to be there's got to be serious German forces there if they're beating up the 101st out there.
Yeah.
And it can't just be a flak battalion and and a couple of machine gun companies.
That's right.
So there's got to be something more serious than that in that area.
And I mean, we might be getting to that, Achilles. We might be getting to that.
All right. I don't want. I'm sorry. I don't want to jump ahead. It just occurred to me, that what I see on the map there is like, okay, there's going to be a lot more than that there, because otherwise the 101st isn't going to have any trouble with them.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
But
right,
we might get
continue.
there. We might get there, and there might be less blocks than we think that are at Son as well.
That's also possible.
101st. They're bound to at some point, right? They are bound to at some point. So we have to.
Were you?
We have to.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Were you concerned at this point that your combat power is being dissipated by being spread out to multiple objectives like that?
Well, here's the thing. Because I did want to support 43rd, and I was asked to, so I was going to do it, and with moves like that, I was thinking, okay, well, we can always keep one step ahead of them, and at least cut off partial of their forces. We have a division now pushing up behind me that's going to fill the space, so why not? In order to bag enemy forces, it can't hurt too much. And I always had a kind of third arm in the King's Royal Hussars or the Princess Irene's to even kind of push a third objective as like some kind of demi-brigade I kind of had set up. They were my little blocking pieces, I suppose you could say. So I wasn't too worried. But I mean, I know at the beginning of this particular series, we did have that kind of question of, let me run type of thing.
Right.
And then it wasn't maybe this turn, but certainly in the next turn, I was like, oh, now I'm being properly diverted. Because whilst we did this in order to achieve a result in our head, it obviously doesn't always work out. So
all right.
We have our resupply or our supply dump over here near High Kent, just south of Walra. We are going to be relocating it along with the artillery to Geldrop. Our supply officer has asked us to send it back to Leander, but I'm like, why am I going to all of a sudden make my supply dump an extra 3 kilometers longer? I don't get it. So we're moving it to Geldrop. This was the beginning of my little bit of insubordination when people were saying we need these roads. We need these roads for something else. And I was like, no, you don't.
Well, you'll have to wait till I get off of them first.
Exactly. I need to keep my division resupplied, otherwise, because I did. I wanted my supplies close, weirdly
Yeah,
enough.
I don't blame you. I don't blame you.
And that's about it. And hopefully a bridge along here is going to be intact somewhere. But if there
I love
isn't,
the
we're going to
optimism
have
of
to
your
cling on.
arrows.
Well, because you just think I'm so far behind now already. Like
Mm-hmm.
it didn't take him this long to get to Son Bridge, and
Mm-hmm.
I was struggling. I really was. I was like, I
Mm-hmm.
have no idea what the hell's going to be. Yeah, and I was half expecting, you know, a mechanized division to be sitting around Neunen or something like that. You know, I was like, oh, and I mean, I did kind of make it a secondary objective of mine just to drive through it. Like, as well, at the beginning of the game, I was like, at least one of my pieces has to go through Neunen as a kind of Easter egg. But yeah. So I chose to pretty much take my entire division through it instead.
Oh, well, there you go.
Yeah, the engineers that have just been sitting there sucking up the fuel. So yeah, any thoughts?
Well, as I said, I love the optimism of your arrows. Uh, um, yeah, and you don't have any good information on where the rest of those Germans that you're coming through, that you're cutting through. You don't know where they are. Are they just like hunkered down in there and becoming trapped, or are they falling back towards where you're intending to go? Or any of that,
Well, that
right?
was half the
So,
thinking as well. I mean, I was definitely
mhm,
saying, if they were going to retreat anywhere from where they were now, after
mhm,
their kind of little spoiling attack against the 43rd to slow them down, which,
mhm,
not going to lie, I was like, well, at least they're attacking Otto and not me, and I'm kind of making my dents as well. Um,
uh-huh,
but the thing is, at the same time, I was like, yeah, if they're going to retreat, they're going to go that way. So if I can try and cut them off
mhm,
any way I could, and it's a bit of a repeating move as well as the game goes
mhm,
on. Um,
mhm,
but I wasn't too worried about it, because at that point as well, I think I should also hasten to mention to say, because you've
mhm,
probably forgotten, but the day before, in the 43rd Divisions, they actually managed to capture what they thought was a division's worth of supplies for
mhm,
whoever they were facing. So I was immediately then thinking, well, these Germans, if they were relying on that supply dump that just got overrun by the 43rd, these guys are going to
mhm,
be low on ammo and low on fuel, so they're not going to give much of a resistance. And that's probably why
right,
I was more than welcome to kind of lend a brigade when I needed to, in order to
mhm,
frustrate the Germans and also support my neighbouring division, because
mhm.
he had a mission to achieve too, and it just so happened to be the same one as mine. So
Yeah, yeah,
like,
yeah. I,
um,
I, yeah. I mean, it's an interesting command decision point because uh, depending on the personality of the commander, his style, his nature,
hmm,
you know, um, my nature, just as personal, I like I like concentration of combat power. So
hmm,
I would have I would have been more inclined to send everything to one side or the other rather
sure,
than try to do both, you know. Um, but that's just my nature, and it's not always right. I mean, it just depends on the situation. If you could achieve both. It depends on where the enemy is and how he resists.
Mm.
And sometimes it's an advantage, that fanning out, because if you've truly broken through, now you can race for objectives
Precisely, yeah.
And not give the enemy a chance to recover.
And everything's in the green. Like, okay, some of the units are kind of running out of petrol. Yeah, there's no doubt in that. But there was me thinking, right, if I have broken through, I can get to as many places as possible, and also to find a bridge over the next canal, because God forbid I go to the wrong bridge, and if the 101st was getting pounded as much as I thought they were, then they might have lost Son Bridge, and I'm going to the wrong objective anyway. So I was just like, right, and we didn't have a great amount of recon ability, because silly me, I put my recon at the back.
Well, I comment. I think it's a fascinating decision point. And there's not necessarily a right or wrong answer. It's just, what happens kind of tells you whether you did the right thing or the wrong thing. But there's necessarily no way to know that in advance. It's your judgment. It's the commander's judgment at that point. Do I think I've actually broken through their main line of resistance, or have I just broken through their forward line?
Yeah.
And if I've just broken through like that forward outpost line, then the main line of resistance is still waiting for me. And if that's the case, then I need to have my combat power close, concentrated, so that I can hit it. If I think I've broken through the main line of resistance, then yes, spreading out makes more sense, because now I can capture multiple objectives. I can keep the enemy off balance. I can do a variety of things, so it's your judgment as to what's the situation. What have you made that true breakthrough yet, or have you just penetrated that forward line? And that's the next step. That's when you're going to find out. You're going to find it out at some point. You're going to find that out.
Well, shall we find out now?
Yeah, let's find out, because the anticipation is driving me crazy.
Right.
So
we watched the situation at 10 a.m. and now it's 4 p.m. and here's what we find out.
Okay, just for my clarification here. So at this point, you have a report from the 101st that they hold the bridge.
Yes.
Right. Okay. And you have another report from a 50th Division recon.
Yeah.
That says they see tanks south of the bridge.
Yes, that's right.
Or south of the river.
Yeah.
Okay. Is it possible that, or did you consider that those tanks might be remnants or elements of that first SS unit that was originally in Eindhoven that's fallen back to that region? So what they're seeing are tanks that started out south of the river, not that have crossed from the north.
I think it was actually stipulated that they had crossed from the north, and they were actually coming down. And I did actually.
How were they crossing if you have the bridge?
Well, this is the thing. I think when they were saying Son Bridge, there is actually a second bridge that is literally about 400 meters to the east of Son Bridge, but it wasn't actually Son Bridge.
I see.
It was actually something that couldn't even hold the weight of a tank. So then, it was useless to me in only getting a battalion across on foot and then taking it from the north with an extra battalion.
Okay.
That's
All
how
right.
we got through Son in the end, but that's spoiling things now. But
Yeah. Yeah. Sorry.
no,
Spoiler alert.
but I was very kind of confused. But
I can
we
imagine.
we kind of hoped that maybe the 50th was a bit of a false report or what have you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, but no, I can't find this screenshot now.
That's
But
all right.
yeah,
That's
it
all right.
literally was like half a division coming across into what they were calling Fortress Eindhoven at
Oh
that
my gosh.
particular time. Uh,
Okay.
and the whole kind of red road to the north of Eindhoven was just chock full of traffic themselves. And there was me going, no, I want to go through. I want to do Band of Brothers. Like, take me down the back roads. Like, what do you
What
think?
what's your timeline? How many days do you have to get to your final?
So we were given six days to get to Arnhem,
Hmm.
and we're getting to what will be almost dinner time on +1.
So you're a third of the way. Is that right?
This would be there would be a third of the way.
Mm-hmm.
This one and it only gets better from here.
Yeah, I don't like your chances. I'm a little concerned.
Yeah,
Uh,
but for some reason it still seems to work.
mhm. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, yeah. Once that is the thing. Once you have truly broken through,
Yeah.
it'll be very difficult for them to put anything up that can actually stop
Well,
you.
I think from this point on forward, I was probably, due to the experience of the last 48 hours, I
Mhm.
was probably my own worst enemy. Um, and because of complications, we have we well, I mean, the next turn is ever so slightly tame and boring. But by tomorrow morning, we have a solid push to come,
Mhm.
and a
Mhm.
promise of being leapfrogged, which you're gonna
Mhm.
love.
Oh yeah. I would think you start to reach a concern too that those German units that you're bypassing as you're
Mm,
cutting off and driving forward, uh, if they sit on it and any of your your major supply arteries, you know, even just sitting there being surrounded,
mm.
they delay everything, especially fuel, which seems to be your biggest problem. Uh,
Yeah,
you know, getting fuel up to your forward units
and
becomes more and more difficult because they have to bypass all those areas that are where the Germans are sitting on those main arteries.
mm.
You know.
But me as well. I found out that uh, if I could say that, because we actually had a guy who was doing a tremendous job being the division supply officer, who basically just
Mhm.
was divvying out the fuel and the ammunition and the artillery
Mhm.
rounds to units
Mhm.
that needed it, you know,
Mhm.
like almost like a shopping list. I've got
Mhm.
so much this turn to give you. Place orders now, and we'll work out the details, right?
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
I think, me being me, and I probably should apologise as well to him, because I kind of threw it in a spanner because I didn't like the fact that every turn I was being asked every 6 hours how my supply situation was, and I was just like,
Mm,
I know how much I'm going to use. Just make
mm,
sure. And every turn at the end of the day, I was like, just make sure by 10 p.m. tonight you can give me X amount of fuel and X amount of ammunition, and I'll divvy it out from my local supply dump overnight,
mm.
and then that'll be fine.
Welcome to Division Command,
Yeah,
sir.
but no, you wanted every 6 hours, and I was just like, oh god, don't worry about me. I know how much I'm using. Just make sure again that by 10 o'clock tonight, my guys can have X amount of fuel, and just save it. Just save it in the bank, and I'll tell you if I'm not using it and if I'm using it. And he was, no word of a lie, um, shoveling me stuff that I didn't need, like anything that he had spare. He was just like, give it to Pump House, and I was just, I don't have anywhere to put it. Um, but it was just so funny. But yeah, there's a lot to look forward to. But
Oh yeah. Well,
yeah,
that kind of thing is that's 75-80% of command right there
hmm,
is just doing the paperwork and accounting of the constant report writing. It's like, okay, how many, how much of this do you need? How much of this do you need? How much of this do you need? How much have you used? What's your consumption rate?
yeah,
You know, all of those things. It's like that's like 80% of the job right there.
it
you know?
is. But I mean,
Yeah.
me being me, I'm just like, be be more calm and collected. I'll don't worry. I know how much I'm going to use, and I'm not going to be a problem for you. I promise. Yeah.
Uh,
But in order to try and keep it calm, the less calm he got, and he was always pinging me and going, "Oi, tell me how much your supplies you need." And I'm like, "I don't need any right now. Don't send me any because you're going to clog the roads." Yeah,
it's,
and because also I wanted my own supply to be quite close to the front, and
mhm,
it gets dangerously close as well.
mhm,
You'll see, but
mhm.
yeah,
Well, it sounds like you're getting a really good, very very realistic experience. So
yeah,
yeah,
it
yeah.
was
I
a
mean
real
that's
good
pretty cool.
to be
Yeah.
kind of caught in between the kind of command structure of also answering to the quartermaster.
Right. Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, yeah. Yeah, that is what happens. That is how it works. So, you know, it's that's a pretty cool experience, really. I
Hmm.
mean, yeah. Sounds like you were enjoying it too, despite the challenges.
Oh yeah, yeah, it was great. I mean,
Yeah.
it's nail biting at times, but it was,
Mhm.
and yeah, and also it was a great thing to do um, on the commute in the morning. Because it was always on like a Monday or Tuesday. I think
uh,
that I always used to
uh,
wake up, and I used to just get on the tube, get on the train that I needed, and uh, just do my orders and like my kind of reports on the train. And there was actually one morning as well where we actually did like a little bit of a command conference because TAC was on nights,
mhm,
and it was
mhm,
me, Justin, and TAC, and I forget who else. I think Sean was there as well, and there was me just sitting on the commuter train, going, "Yeah, I got my tank divisions going up the road to St Oderoda, and oh, those poor bastards are getting blown to bits. I need air support. Yeah, I've got enough artillery ammunition." Just sitting on the tube having a chat.
uh, At least you didn't have MI5 waiting for you when you got
No,
off the subway.
and but yeah, but it was just really funny. Just the strangest kind of conversation that you've
Conversation.
ever
Mhm.
heard on a train carriage. I did
That's
sound like a
awesome.
madman, but I did have him on speaker as well because it actually wasn't coming through Discord on like the normal thing, so I had to have it on like a bit
Mhm.
of a low speaker. So you know, the lady next to me was also like, "What is this man doing?"
That's fantastic. That is so cool.